members who we have for our next session. So we have Mr. Anshoo Sharma, who's the co-founder and CEO of magicpin. We have Mr. Arun Bagaria, who's the co-founder of TravClan. We have Mr. Rishi Raj Rathore, who is also the co-founder of Arzooo. And to moderate the whole event, we have Aditi Shrivastava from CapTable. So on to the panel members to take the discussion forward from here on. Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you, Samar. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you, Anshu, Rishi, and Arun. I hope everyone is doing well.
Hi, Aditi. Yeah, all well. How are you?
Good. Can't complain. So let me just jump right in, right? We have a very interesting panel today, all of whom are in different ways solving, which I believe is one of the hardest problem in India, which is digitizing SMB retail. So in the interest of time, would first, sort of like to start and get a quick 2-minute understanding from each one of you about your business, and then quickly move on to more specific questions. So let's start with Rishi. Would love to know a little bit more about Arzooo, and I'm at least particularly keen to understand how you narrowed the category of electronics as a business, to go after first, and we can take it from there.
Sure, Aditi. First of all, thanks for inviting on this panel. So we are Arzooo. We are a vertically integrated platform focused on consumer electronics as a category. Within electronics, our core focus is durables, which is your large appliances and TV. And then we also do mobile phones and small engine appliances as a category. So it all started with our own experience of building this category at Flipkart, where we built this category grounds up to get to an almost $1 billion kind of GMV number in 2 years time frame. Before that, we built this category for a few of the large OEMs in India. And if you look at this category, it's a high ticket value item, right? Where a lot of assisted buying is required for the pre-shopping experience. Even after shopping, there's a lot of after-sale service which is required in this category. That's where we realized that even you look at the numbers right now, 90% of this category is still offline. And if you look at tier 2 plus markets, 95% of this category is still offline. And tier 2 plus is the market where we see a lot of growth happening right now, right? A lot of first-time buyers are coming. The penetration of this category is quite low in tier 2 plus. So we see around 70% of this market would be in tier 2 plus in next 5 to 10 years. And that's where you see e-commerce adoption is quite low. People are reliant on offline stores as a buying source, right? So that's where the whole concept started for Arzooo, how we can empower these offline stores and help them in their e-commerce journey, plus enable them through technology, right? So there were two key things that we realized these stores face problem with. One is selection, second is pricing. When I talk about selection, you see these are large appliances and retailers have a very sort of limited space to keep these appliances, right? So they are just limited to 40, 50 SKUs that they can sell inside a store. Second, there are a lot of emerging brands coming up in this category who don't have any access to general trade, right? They go list on Flipkart, Amazon, but they don't have access to offline because they don't have distribution in offline. And that's where you see the opening price point for all of these categories is quite different in Flipkart versus in offline. So if I'm a customer who's looking to buy a 32-inch smart TV, my opening price point in offline can be 15,000 versus Flipkart, which has 8,000, 10,000 kind of opening price point. So on selection side, we saw these two problems that we can sort of democratize general trade for all the brands to launch into that market. So everybody is on the same pedestal in terms of opening price points. Second, we provide a platform to retail partners where they're just not limited to 40, 50 SKU. They have access to thousands of selection as per e-commerce, right? Where customers can come and they can showcase that selection to end customer. Second problem was pricing, that given that there's a multiple distribution layer in offline, these retailers don't end up getting a good margin in supply chain, and that's where they're not competitive in terms of like with respect to Flipkart, Amazon, or with respect to players like Reliance and Chroma. So pricing was second thing that we thought of solving. So these are two things that we solve for offline retail right now, selection and pricing. In terms of scale, we have around 20,000 retail partners working with us directly. 75% of these stores are part of tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 towns. And we are almost at a $500 million kind of GMV run rate. So yeah.
Got it. So how exactly do you do this? Do retailers sign up on an app, or how does the product exactly work?
So I think we have a B2B e-commerce platform that we give it to retail partners. They need to register, and once we see all the business KYC, we approve them. Then they have access to all of the brands on a single platform itself. Now they're using platform in two ways. One is to buy their inventory at a better margin. Second, if there's any customer who walks into a retail store is looking to buy a specific brand or a specific model, which is not available in the retail store, right? They can still place an order in real time and then fulfill that order for the consumer. And that's where we see a major use case where they don't need to stock up all the items. They can still use Arzooo platform and fulfill consumer demand, right? And that's where we have seen conversions have gone up quite well in the stores.
Got it. And were these earlier customers who would come to the store and then compare prices and go buy online, or was that the dynamics earlier, or are these or are these consumers not comfortable with online as a platform altogether?
So there are two problems. First thing was consumers were walking into a retail store, but many times they were not finding the right product or right brand they wanted to buy, right? Second, the sort of behavior you said that they compare the price with online, that mostly we have seen in tier 1, tier 2 towns. That's not prevalent in tier 3, tier 4, right? So both cases we are helping them where we have enabled them with a better selection. And even if customer is comparing the price with Flipkart, Amazon, we are offering much better margin to retail partners to compete with that kind of pricing.
Got it. Awesome. Would sort of love to also understand from Anshoo, a little bit more about magicpin.
Thank you, Aditi. Hi, Rishi, and thank you for having me here. And Aditi, you're welcome to stop me at any place. I'll just quickly describe what magicpin does and also add our view of where the train is headed, right? With COVID, there's so much that's transforming in offline retail in general. That's very exciting what all will get done in the next 5-10 years. So magicpin stands for offline retail. We think of ourselves as the gateway to offline retail. Why that is important is, as humans, our consumption pattern is still 90% offline. We want to go and look at things, especially in many categories, food, fashion, electronics, as Rishi also mentioned, right? Like our consumption pattern is still offline. But if you look at the investments that have gone in, most of those have gone towards online retail, which is building vertically integrated supply chains in most cases, across inventory, warehouses, dark stores. But there's a century-old supply chain that already exists all around us, right? Most of the products we need are in a 500-meter radius, already sitting there. And if one was to be able to unravel what services and products are available and then create consumption of that, right? Lead that all the way to transaction, then that's a massive $1 trillion market, which hasn't been impacted through technology. And it was not possible to do this in the past because mobile phones weren't ubiquitous. These catalogs were not easy to create, but all of that is changing. So we stand for this discovery for offline retail, and we do this across categories: food, fashion, grocery, electronics, pharmacy. And we do this whether one is to go to that store or order from that store. And a lot of this is new because going to the store was the primary model with which we started to build magicpin. 2 years back, as COVID came in, everyone was forced to rethink what is going to happen in this ecosystem. And at that point, we built the reverse model also, that we will drive discovery, which could lead to a transaction at the store or from the store. And then we would do the reverse logistics of getting not the reverse logistics in traditional sense, but we'll get the product from the store into the consumer's hands. And in essence, if you were to think of what we are doing, is that we are along the local retail of our country. There are millions of these retailers across our country who literally form the lifeblood of who we are, right? Like in our local markets, across categories, all of these things. And as online and technology comes in, it's not that all of these retailers are going to be defunct, right? They are all going to be able, and at this point in time, they're all very keen to figure out how do they partner, who do they partner with to go online. But there are limitations in those models because if you just provide them a SaaS solution, that's not enough. These guys are fairly value conscious, right? Just software or technology is not going to do it. But if you tell them, I'll drive demand to you, I'll give you business. And if you say that, then their absorption is very different. Because the one thing that this local retailer is always willing to pay for is incremental demand. They'll give you a cut of what you can drive as business. And on the back of that model, there's digitization that continues to go deeper. But it'll have to be built end to end. It can't be just a software solution that then the retailer thinks of, okay, how do I drive customers on this web interface that's been created? So that's the approach we've taken, that we'll drive demand and then the demand will create this digitization, and then increasingly across categories, more and more of these retailers will come online. I'll pause there in case you have any questions.
Got it. Would love to understand which are your top 3 or 4 categories, and take, just double click on that.
Food, fashion, electronics. These are the 3 categories that we are deepest on. But the model is to that extent, like what we do is it's actually more density led than category led. The more we are dense in a neighborhood, the more there is synergy for us to be able to add more retailers, more categories, and thus add more consumers.
Got it. So, personally, I want to understand a little bit more about, you just raised a investment from Zomato. How does that fit in? And, what's the understanding there? If you could just sort of tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. And this is, of course, my view, right? You might get a different answer from Zomato, but what Zomato has done for food is, to an extent, and Zomato and necessity, right? What they've done in that category is just wonderful, right? That whole category got built up, and in a matter of a few years. But if you think about that category, that's just one category. There are so many more categories, right? Fashion, electronics, there are local stores across all of these categories. And thus there is one template, which is let's replicate the same demand gen model for local retailers in different categories. So that's one thing which magicpin does, and that in a way overlaps in terms of the way to think with what Zomato has already done. The second piece is that while there is online delivery, and that's become the core of Zomato and Swiggy, but there is also getting people to these stores, which is equally a large opportunity. And there are no providers of that service to the local retailer. Like Google, Facebook, Instagram, they don't work because the loop closure doesn't happen. And that's the other way. So not just online orders, but also footfall to these merchants. That's what we drive. And Zomato has, to an extent, in the food category and within delivery within that food category, right, has created such a strong franchise. And it makes sense that the franchise can be replicated. And that's I would say, some amount of synergy that we believe exists on both sides.
Got it. And is it different as you fulfill demand for, a food outlet versus, say, fashion versus electronics in terms of, the segments? Do you have to take a different approach for each segment, or is it productized across the board?
There are some similarities. For example, if I talk about going to the store, what we've got is someone can use their magicpin points and get savings, right? So to that extent, the loop closes cleanly across whatever category it is. But when it comes to creating catalogs, there are differences. For example, you'd find that a food catalog is fairly fixed, right? The menu is a menu, doesn't change as often. Fashion changes more. If you come to grocery, it changes much faster. What's in stock, what's not in stock. So the solutioning ends up being different, but the core platform is the same. There are some tweaks that need to be made to make sure that category runs well.
Got it. Awesome. Moving to Rishi as well. Do I see him?
Aditi, I'm here.
Hey, sorry, I meant Arun. Sorry, I'm
right.
Hey, hi everyone. Hey, hi Aditi. Hi Aditi. Thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
So, I would definitely like to understand about your business, given that, the pandemic has been the most brutal to the travel industry, and also an opportunity for companies like yours to digitize a lot of the fragmented market, so to say. So would sort of love to, start with that and, understand, what the business was pre-pandemic. How did you sort of move, or, what was the core value prop as the pandemic hit, and, where are you today? Would love to get an overview.
Sure. So, just to give you an overview first, what do we do, right? So very simply, we help travel agents grow their business, right? So I think one thing which everyone sort of in the educated elite has this bias is travel is sold online, which is actually not true. Even today, close to 70% of travel is still sold offline. And like the presentation earlier mentioned, that the moment it comes to holidays or leisure travel or anything which people are going on a multi-city tour, uh, or they are buying a package, they use a travel agent, right? And this is not just in India. Globally, more than 50% of travel is still sold offline through these travel agents, through travel consultants, and so on and so forth. So, similar to what Rishi mentioned, so we've previously worked at Travel Triangle, Oyo, and a couple of other travel startups and travel companies. So what we realized is that fundamentally Indians continue to go to these travel agents despite of UPI and 4G, simply because of they help with respect to planning the trips and also the service they provide, right? So what we started with is a very simple value prop that these agents already have demand. But when it comes to supply, right, which means that today Indians, 5 years back, Indians were going just to Thailand or Dubai, right, when it comes to international travel. Right. But now Indians have started going to even Iceland or Seychelles or Australia or New Zealand, right? And finding reliable suppliers across the world for a small SME is a very large problem statement, right? And over here, when you think of travel, there are two things which are unique to travel compared to any product. First, you pay at least typically 30 to 60 days before you actually consume that particular service. And second is that it's an experience, right? That's one thing which we sort of tend to miss, that when we think travel, we think booking a flight or booking a hotel, but it's actually a service which you experience when you go there, right? So over there, having the right supply partners is super critical. And the first part has got to do with payments, right? So when we started, we were focusing on helping these agents source products, which basically means if they have a customer who wants to book a holiday package for anywhere in the world, they just have to come to TravClan, and TravClan will be a single platform through which they can book this entire holiday for anywhere in the world or in India. So, just to give a sense, pre-pandemic, in the first year of our operations, so we started in late 2018, January onwards is when we started, January 2019 is when we started doing transactions. So in the first year, we reached, a pretty good scale, but 70% of our business was international travel, because that's where we were focusing on. As the pandemic hit, right, I think all of us had to sort of really take a deep look at our businesses, and especially in travel, there were, existential questions. So I think what we did at that point really is try and answer one very simple question, that what is it that our customers, these agents, want to do next, right? So I think one thing was very clear, that, the purchase behavior might evolve to people no longer coming to shops, but people will still need that advice. So therein, we started helping these agents build their online presence. We were doing this in a very small way before the pandemic, in terms of they could send out products on WhatsApp, similar to what Meesho or some of these other players do in other categories. So wherein what we've started doing now is helping these agents build their online presence, create a website with their own catalogs, pricing, so on and so forth. We also, because we are, we have the whole stack of products, we help them, we don't just give an empty website without any products. We give them a stack of products which they can sell directly. They can set their own prices and so on and so forth. So that's the first part. We don't just stop there. Like Anshoo mentioned, people in India, SMEs, still don't pay for SaaS. At the end of the day, you have to help them generate demand. So we help these agents drive more inquiries to them through their websites or so on and so forth. So how we do that is we've created a very simple library, which, these agents can in one click market on social media in terms of, like, we've created a library of content, right? Posters, videos, news, travel advisory, things like these. Right. And in one click, I, as an agent, can, using the TravClan app, in one click, I can just send out these posters or news with my own branding to my customers. So that has helped them, generate more and more top of the mind recall in their circles, right, with their customers. So what has started happening is, we did a survey recently wherein 70% of our travel agents said that they've started getting new first-time customers after they've started using TravClan. So that's how we really, are empowering them in terms of generating demand. And the core of what we do really ends up being fulfillment, right? Like, which is procurement or whatever you call it, wherein if they have a customer who's looking to book a flight or a hotel or a holiday, right? TravClan acts as the single platform where they can book these. So that's what we do. And, just to talk a little more about the pandemic. So, I think we've been through through three waves now.
Yeah.
First was when, was very existential, that when will travel resume, if people will travel, and so on and so forth. Since then, I think we've reached a stage where, just what we've seen in terms of our own numbers and the industry numbers, right? I think after the second wave, or even in between the two waves, in late 2020 and in mid 2021, the sheer pace with which travel rebounded, right? I think that sort of established one key aspect, that people will not stop traveling, right? Like, people, as humans, we want to discover new places, new cultures, food, lifestyle, things like these, right? So people have continued to travel, and the more we stay at our homes, right, like, the more the urge to move out becomes higher. And at a time like this, there are so many complexities, so many rules that are changing. You want to make sure that you just check with someone, I'm going just from Delhi to Bombay, what do I need? Do I need RT-PCR? Do I need just my vaccination certificate? Things like these, right? So those are things which we sort of help the travel agent service their customers better. What this does is, at the end of the day, our wallet share, like, we keep on getting more and more usage of these agents, right? And we are getting more and more of their wallet share as we launch more travel products which they can sell to their customers.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Is corporate a large part of your business, or is it largely consumers who are the end recipients?
Right. So we don't serve either corporates or consumers directly. We have agents who serve both corporates and consumers.
Right.
So 30%, 35% of agents who work with us, their primary business has been corporates historically. So we do have a lot of agents who book flights, hotels for their corporates using TravClan.
Got it. Got it. Got it. And you did mention this, right? That post the pandemic, people really do want to sort of be very personal with, just have somebody out there to, help them with the process, etc. But have you seen that transition into numbers as well, in terms of, how some of your travel agents may have grown? Is there a tangible way to make sense of this?
Yeah, so actually it has grown, right? Even with our own numbers and the agents' numbers as well. So like I said, one of those things has been that they've started getting new first-time customers, right? So I think that is something which we see very clearly. The key thing which has happened, not just for us, but for all travel agents, right? Primarily, most of the travel agents were in the business of selling more and more holidays, right? Like, if you look at, if you look at just the market, roughly $40 billion of travel is sold through these agents, of which 20 billion is primarily holidays, right? So within that, international travel used to be a very large aspect. Given that international travel has been lower itself, the overall business that the travel agents might be doing is still, not up to the pre-pandemic level. But they've started getting more and more customers who are even booking, weekend trips to them, and even small, outings with their families through them, right? So typically on an agent, he started seeing 20-30% more customers every month compared to a pandemic. But again, this is very, very dependent on, January was very bad, due to Omicron. But at least what we've seen in the last 5 days, right, we've started doing again the numbers we were doing in November 2021, right, which was our highest ever. And similarly, agents are seeing their business come back very quickly, right? So that's where we see that these customers which have started using agents, I think they will continue to use agents even more, right? Because fundamentally, when you use an agent, you realize that you're getting much better service. You don't have to worry about waiting in the call center or anything of that sort. You have a very direct person whom you can reach out to, and in terms of price, there's no real gap.
Got it. Anshu, coming back to you, just one question that is sort of plaguing the SME space has always sort of been that it's a very, very hard business to monetize. It would be great to get your understanding. I think you've been in the business the longest. What is your sense on that?
No, I would say, Aditi, to the contrary, right? It's like just fundamentally, a marketplace, both sides are fragmented. What could be better for economics? Look at most of the companies that have gone, or let's say the initial set of companies that went public, right? Uh, like Info Edge, Naukri in the first phase, which was around SMEs, IndiaMart, Zomato, right? The fundamentals of marketplace being able to monetize is very high in this sector. I think having said that, the reality is that this segment is also most value conscious. So if the value is not being delivered, it's really hard. So getting the flywheel to start to spin, it's tough. But we see that, right? As we get density in our markets, right? Like then this is probably very high quality business, sustainability.
So what was that point in your business? Again, because you've been here, you've been doing this the longest. What was that point at which you understood that it's all sort of coming together from from a business, from economics, like that the system is working, so to say.
Yeah. Also, I think it happened I would say somewhere around the late second year of our existence. We figured out what it takes to get the flywheel to spin. And I'd been in an investing role prior to this, so coming in, I knew monetizing small merchants is not going to be easy. But we also knew that if there's one thing they'd pay for, that would be demand, right? You give them demand, they'll pay you a cut of it. I think sometime towards the late second year, we cracked the nut on being able to build attribution for what we were doing, which was largely consumers walking up to the store and saying, hey, I want to use magicpin, right? Once that started to happen, and that started to happen at scale, merchants' belief system around, okay, magicpin gives me business, that transformed. And then it was a matter of just getting enough density. Now, at this point, we have a playbook to say, this is where a locality starts, this is the average revenue per user, this is the margin that we'll get. But as we continue to deepen our density in terms of users and merchants in that market, it like the gross margins, the value to user, the value to merchant, all of those start to kind of build out. Yeah, so I would say we figured it out. Took us 2 years to get the code on this, but even after that, building at scale, it continues to be a tough market, which I think is the hard part about this. The good thing is that because it's tough, it's not easy for someone else to come in and do this, right? You need to go and do that entire cycle that you had to do.
Got it. And Rishi, what about you? Do you is your plans also to sort of do you plan to always for the near term look at the electronic space, or are you thinking about expansion? How is the business looking?
Hey, first of all, I'll answer your question on profitability part, and I second Anshoo there that in marketplace there are multiple opportunities to monetize, right? So in our kind of business also, you see it's a category where the margins are not that big. It's not a 50-60% kind of margin category, right? The take rates in this category can vary between 8% to 12%. So what you need to also think of is your cost structure, right? And that's where we have been focusing a lot, how we can sort of build a sustainable supply chain in this vertical, where we don't rely a lot on warehousing and inventory, because that's the biggest cost in our kind of category, right? And that's what we did at Flipkart, and the whole P&L was like sort of very bad, right? So that's what we have focused on from the start, that how we can build a very asset-light supply chain in this vertical, where we don't rely a lot on inventory or warehousing. That's where we have direct integration with OEMs and the large distributors that we work with. And we sort of built a density across regions, right? So we have regional distributors and suppliers where we supply from that particular hub only. We don't hold that inventory. We just take care of fulfillment from starting point to end point. Second, on the logistics fronts also, we have built a logistics supply chain. So what we call Arzooo Express, which are our own logistics, right? Where we can sort of, again, don't hold a lot of vehicles or drivers. We have built a tech platform, which we give to these regional transporters, where they can see all the pickups, drops, route optimization, all those things. So we have remained asset light on the inventory side and on the logistics side also. And that's where these 8 to 12% kind of margins combined with the cost structure that we have built in this category is quite sort of interesting in this kind of vertical. Now, coming back to your question that do we want to expand into other categories? We see a lot of opportunity in this category itself. So if you look at durables, it's going to be a $34 billion kind of category by 25. And we also do mobile phones and small kitchen appliances. So overall, the TAM is around 80 billion in this vertical itself, right? And we are the leading player in this vertical right now. So next 4 to 5 years, we just want to focus on this vertical and going deeper, solving the problem for retail partners. We started with solving for selection and pricing. We also started launching Arzooo credit recently, where we saw a very good demand building up from the retailer side, right? And that has been a key pain point in this industry. So till now, we have solved selection, pricing, credit, these kind of pain points for the retail partner. Next set of plan is how we can sort of build front-end integration for the retail partners, right? Where they can actually go online and start selling to consumers directly. And that's where we want to retain the flavor of offline, where these retail partners have been high touch. So there's assisted buying happening in the retail store. Consumer can actually talk to a salesman. They can actually see the product demonstration before buying anything, right? So the same experience we want to replicate into sort of digital platform also. So right now we are focused on building that front-end integration for all of the stores that we have.
Got it. And Arun, in your business, where are the margins? Are they largely in the SaaS side of things, or is it mostly on the partnerships that you're doing with the overseas players, etc.?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think when it comes to margins, right? So in travel, fundamentally, there are enough margins to be made in everything except flights, right? So flights is probably the only category where margins are very thin, but flights is a good business. Like you can make money, like you can make profits on it, but not high margins. So for us, the highest margin category is holidays, right? So we already make close to 5 to 6% margins in holidays as a category. Which can increase as we grow in terms of volumes, right? So travel, if you look at any travel business, fundamentally there are inherent, benefits to scale, right? Like, so there's economies of scale in terms of your purchasing power, in terms of contracting, in terms of driving demand to, let's say, particular hotels or suppliers and so on and so forth, right? So just in the last 1 year, right, like we've grown from, doing just, few thousand bookings to doing, tens of thousands of bookings every month, right, in terms of scale, right? And what that has done is today, when we do close to 4 to 5% of the entire India to Maldives market, we have, all resorts who want to launch to the Indian market or even the established ones wanting to work on the platform. Right. So it is travel inherently is something wherein once you have a sizable volumes, once you're doing $100, $200 million kind of GMV in a year, right? That's where every travel company, like every hotelier or supplier wants to start, working with you. So that's where, really margins lie. To answer your question. Yeah.
Got it. Just checking in the interest of time, are we...
Hey, Aditi, I think we can take another question or two. It shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, perfect. So just double clicking on that, Arun, as you were speaking about the margin profile. So as you see travel evolve now for the next, and it's a hard question, right? Like to be asked during these times, but I'm sure you have a view on this as well. How do you see? How do you see the next 1 or 2 years, for the business, specifically for the category itself? What's your sense on that?
Okay. See, I think, if you look at just what has happened, right, between 2020 and now, first is that literally 50% of the world is vaccinated, right? Even in India, right? I think that's not a small achievement for a country our size and for the whole world. If you look at what has happened is that during these 3 waves, as individuals and as humans, we've evolved to sort of start living with the virus and sort of realizing that, there is a wave right now and so on and so forth. So the first wave sort of had impact for 6 months, right? If you look at what happened in India. If you look at the second wave, the impact was just for 3 months, right? April, May, June 21. And if you look at, today where we are, or in the third wave, where the third wave was pretty strong in terms of the number of people who got infected due to COVID, but the impact, at least of this particular variant, was very limited in terms of the health ramifications it had. So what we saw was that things did not close down. There were very small, temporary 10-day sort of lockdowns, if any, right? So I think where we are headed is, at least our view and what we see in terms of numbers from the industry, right, is we won't go back to zero, right? We won't see that for 2 months there's no airlines, flights, etc. I think that is behind us. When there is a wave, if at all there are more waves in the future, maybe those particular months might be 30, 40, 50%. But I think what will happen is that, we personally feel, and what we are seeing demand already, right, like I said, the last 1 week, is that we are up for a very big bang summer, right? Everyone wants to travel. Everyone wants to do international travel, right? In just the last 10 days, UK has announced, removal of all restrictions whatsoever. Thailand is opening up, right? Most of the countries are starting to open up, right? I think few countries might take a very, very conservative view. Countries like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, who were conservative even during the 2 years. But most of the other countries, especially in Southeast Asia, where Indians travel the most, have sort of realized that they sort of depend on tourism, right? Like 8-10% of their economy is dependent on tourism, even in India. So they will open up, right? I think that's where we see. And I think sort of we'll move to a place where, if you're vaccinated and those vaccines are approved in those particular geographies, or even within India, right? I mean, people will start moving freely. That's where at least we see the world moving to. And if you just look at the numbers we are doing right now in the last 1 week, right? Like we closed February at our highest ever numbers, right? So I think agents are also seeing that optimism in terms of demand coming back very quickly. And this has happened earlier. So sort of this time we know that it's not just a 1 week kind of a blip, right? And will go away. But I think it will, who doesn't want to travel over here, right? During their summer vacation. So I think that's the real question.
Got it.
Yeah.
Anshu, on that note, this is something that I'm seeing as a trend even for the online marketplaces quite a bit, which is the omni-channel approach, partnering with stores and, delivering from stores. This is something which has been in the works and more so post-pandemic, at least in the fashion space, a lot of movement has happened on this front. What is your sense in terms of how retailers look at a product like magicpin versus how they look at a consumer internet company, say like a Flipkart or an Amazon? What is the difference in their mind and the differentiator for a magicpin in that regard?
Sure, and if you would allow, I'd just like to build on what Arun was saying, right? I think as humans, we all want to go out and consume. That's partly what magicpin stands for. At the same time, our lives have transformed, our habitats have transformed, and some of that is done for good, right? Working remotely, online education, right? Like the real estate ecosystem as a result. So I think there's a lot that is new, and thus there's an opportunity that connects back to omnichannel. That all of these retailers, they used to talk about, even the large guys. We work with the small retailer, but also the large guy, right? And they would talk about omnichannel in their boardrooms for such a long time. In the last 12 months, all of them have implemented it, right? They've realized that's the only way to live, right? So I think while there would be a fair bit of going out, but I think the world has transformed and more things would happen. Coming back to what you're saying, our partners see us as extending their presence online. Versus in many of the other online companies, the traditional ones, they end up being still supply points for them. And there's a big difference between both of those places, right? For example, we will say, here is a store 500 meters away from you. And if you order, in fact, we are going live with a bunch of partners today with that quick commerce for fashion. You can see just like your food gets on a bike and comes to you, your shirt and jeans can get on a bike and come to you. And you can see that happen as that happens, right? So just that experience, right? Like the online guys are geared up for something else, right? They're trying to find efficiency while we are trying to bring your local store in your hand such that you can interact with it and consume at that store.
Got it. And are you seeing a lot of that flavor, come online in communities as well, that people want to, shop from their local shops and, just establish a more intimate relationship with their local communities? Is that happening?
I think it's less about people saying they don't wake up and say, I want to shop local, right? It's not that. But they want whatever they want, right? But I think some of the associations, right? Like the way the retail experience is, that is just far more consumer oriented, right? When you say you go out, right? You go out, have food, do shopping, right? Like look at different categories, walk into an electronics store and say, oh, what's new? So all of those pieces, right? They just can't be replicated in a very functional online kind of consumption behavior. I think that association just carries online. And if I can look at those stores without stepping into them, right? There's a new selection that's come into my favorite fashion brand, right? And I can just look at it on my phone. I can then go and choose to shop there or get that order at home, right? It's very different from doing something which is very functional in nature that otherwise you will end up doing at a pure online store.
Got it. That's very helpful. Rishi, what about you? Like, I mean, even the category that you're in is, largely online dominated, at least in the smartphone side of things, right? So, how do you ensure that these retailers are able to sort of level the playing field with online players in terms of their speed of delivery and everything else, the infrastructure that they have built over the years? How have you been able to like tangibly do that?
So Aditi, just to mention that we are mostly focused on consumer durables as a category, right? So TV, fridge, AC, washing machine, these are core categories for us. Mobile we do mostly as a cross-selling item, right? The large appliances store, they start cross-selling mobile phones and they were not into this category early on. That's the only use case for mobile in our kind of platform, right? So it's largely large appliances focused platform that we have created. And when you see retail, once we start building the retail footprint, I think that's the only channel where you can quickly do last mile also, right? And it's not a sustainable model where you build warehouses and then start doing last mile across tier 3, tier 4. So that's where we see that this footprint is quite essential in India if you want to serve tier 3, tier 4, tier 4, 5 kind of towns, right? So that's where we chose this model to go to consumers also, that first we empower retailers and empower their backend first, where they have good selection, good pricing, and then eventually take them online. And in a way, all of these retail stores will start working as an optimized node in supply chain, right? But they can work as a last mile fulfillment hub for Arzooo kind of platform. We can deliver same day or maybe within 24 hours to any consumer in tier 3, tier 4 also. So it's a kind of a structure that we are creating through Arzooo.
Got it. And what is is there a delta in the speed of delivery as well when it comes to placing an order via Arzooo or a retail shop versus say an online platform?
There's a big delta. So if you order from still a tier 2, tier 3 kind of city in India, online takes around 5 to 7 days or few cases 10 days also, right? From a store is instant gratification you can get within 24 hours. And if you start leveraging Arzoo's channel online, I think the same case would happen, that we can use this store to deliver in 24 hours, right?
Got it. And after sales also, I'm assuming in this category itself will be like after sales installation, everything, all of that will also be like a large component of the business itself.
It is so. A lot of consumers who are coming from smaller tier cities, they heavily rely on the retail store, right? If they face any problem after buying the product, they can go back to the store, complain about that. That doesn't happen with traditional e-commerce. And that's where we see that there's a high reliability on the offline stores in small tier cities. So definitely after sales is a big component of this category, because any product you buy like AC or washing machine, you keep it for next 8 to 10 years in your house, right?
Right. Got it. So I think we are now I'm pushing my luck with my time. Thank you so much, you guys. I learned a lot while speaking to you guys, and thank you so much for taking our time and sharing very, very valuable insights. Yogesh, you'll take it from here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aditi, and thank you so much, panel members, for this session. It was surely an insightful session, and we are having a ton of questions and queries coming in. So again, I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to all 4 of you for taking out time and doing this wonderful session. So now moving on to the next session, we would be